Elena Lacayo is the lead singer of Elena and Los Fulanos, a bilingual folk rock band based here in Washington, D.C. Since 2011, they've been creating music that ranges from twangy, heartfelt themed folk Americana to soothing, introspective, violin infused Latin rock. Elena's musical influences draw on her experience growing up in two cultures, Nicaraguan and American. Elena and Los Fulanos creates a world where language and tradition meld with catchy melodies and inventive chords in our increasingly multicultural world. Their debut album, help me with the pronunciation here. Debut album
Yeah,
was?
this one's the harder one. Miel Venenosa.
Miel Venenosa earned a Washington Area Music Award, or a Whammy nomination, for the Best Latin Recording in 2014.
And Miel
I
Venenosa
first
means poisonous honey, just so for the...
Poisonous honey.
Yeah.
Interesting. And we just heard Himalayan honey earlier.
Yeah,
From that.
that's
So
true.
wow, we got all kinds of honey on the show today. I love it. And I first came across Elena and Los Fulanos when I had and her name escapes me at this moment when I need it on the microphone. Mary Jo Mateo
Yeah,
was on the
Mary
show,
Jo.
and she had a show coming up with you guys, and she said, "Oh, you definitely got to check out
yeah.
Elena." And I checked out Elena, and my goodness, amazing things. So, listeners, it's with great pleasure that I introduce Elena Lacayo.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
And so now tell us about you, Elena. You got how did Elena and Los Fulanos come about? Tell us the quick story.
Oh, the quick story. Well, you were starting to ask me about me, and I was going to go into that.
We'll
but
come back to
we'll
that. I
come back
promise.
to it because that is a big part of what Elena Los Fulanos is. But yeah, I was working here in DC, like so many people, on policy. I moved here 10 years ago, and I've been doing music and creating original songs. And I was playing out, and a couple of my friends were like, "Hey, I can play with you," and that's kind of how we
Nice.
started it. We started it kind of informally, and I just realized with time that I liked a lot what we were doing, and I quit my job and started doing it more seriously. So that's where we are now.
Wow, so full-time musician. And now tell us what you were going to say about how the music came about in your life.
Well, it's just that, so I do bilingual music. You guys only heard a song in Spanish, but there's also songs in English. And at this point, basically when I started the project, I was a little like, well, what am I supposed to do? I have songs in English and I have songs in Spanish. Do I do two separate projects? Are they the same thing? And eventually I came to the conclusion that if these two things existed in my own person, that they should be able to exist in a music project. And that's sort of what the point is that, people will look at me and they'll think one thing, but I actually grew up in Nicaragua, and that's where my parents live. And but I also grew up in the States. I was born here, and then we moved back when I was 8. And so I really grew up between the U.S. And Nicaragua, and those are both fully parts of me, and I'm fully Nicaraguan and fully American, and that's kind of what we do with our music. We show that identities are more complex than what meets the eye.
Yeah, and it definitely comes across that way. And the breadth, I love the breadth of your music. It's a very, not every song, it's not the same each time. There's different feelings, there's different emotions. It comes across in the music you make.
Yeah, it's a little. I almost think I'm a little musically schizophrenic. That's how I kind of consider myself. Which I've decided is a better place to be than listening to a band and feeling like every song sounds the same. So I'd rather be more broad than not. And really, it's interesting when I'm putting together albums, instead of trying to make things match with each other, it's like I almost try to make it's almost more narrative, and it's almost more about showing the diversity of things that we do. So making sure we kind of show, if like songs are too similar, we like don't put them on the same album.
Right.
Which is interesting.
Smart. Okay.
You know what I mean?
And now, what about you? So outside of the outside of Los Fulanos, what's life like for you? What do you do in your spare time? I guess you could say.
Oh man. Well, I do a lot of solo shows, which is really fun. And I get to. I do all kinds of stuff as a solo artist. Now that certain things have happened politically, I'm getting a lot of requests to play movement events. So I play a lot of pro-immigrant events. This weekend was kind of crazy for me. I ended up playing planned and unplanned shows. People are really hungry for this kind of music. But I also work at a cafe, a social justice cafe in DC called the Potter's House, which is awesome. And they have a bookstore, and I help run it because I'm into books. And that's kind of what
Okay.
I studied when I was in undergrad. And so it's really cool, though. I mean, they're sort of similar. It's sort of related to be into books and into music, both in the inability to make music money off of it, unfortunately, but also just like in the fact that like these are things that meld that like really shape our culture and our collective consciousness as a people, and
Yeah.
it's really cool to be in the world of ideas like that. So
That's cool.
yeah.
And what about, and you said into books. Does that mean you read a lot of books, or you just are comforted by being around them? Or
I mean,
what do you read?
all of the above. I'm, if since I work at a bookstore, I buy a bunch of books, and then I don't necessarily always have time to get to them.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I'm a much better at going to shows. I'm much better about going to shows than I am about sitting down and reading books. I'm a bit of an extrovert, and music is really my focus. But it's really cool to be around the world of of books because people always, they give you their opinions even if you haven't read them, or you learn about people that are important that even if you haven't read them, oh, this was a very important person in the civil rights movement. And sometimes those
Yeah.
people come into the cafes too, and then they'll
Wow,
tell
that's
you who
cool.
they are. They're like, oh, I'm a SNCC leader from, I grew up in Mississippi, and she's like 92 or something. So it's really cool to be in that world, and social justice is kind of my background, and so that's a lot of what also informs my music. So it's
Yeah.
really
And
cool.
I realize you said SNCC leader, and for those who don't know what that is, what is that?
Oh, what is the acronym? The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. They were a big organization.
Oh,
John Lewis belonged to that. If you guys saw the
got it.
movie, the one about MLK, Selma, I think it was called.
Yes. Uh-huh.
The SNCC leaders are the younger folks who are
I
kind of,
see.
the ones out on the, they're
And they come into the cafe.
they're
That's
pretty
cool.
hardcore, standing up for their rights, and so it's really cool to meet people who confronted such bigotry and such hatred to their face. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And try and stood up for it. So.
What about you as an artist? The biggest success moment that comes to mind?
Oh, our biggest success actually just happened the day after Thanksgiving. We had this awesome opportunity to play at the Kennedy Center here. We played the Millennium Stage,
Wow.
and it was something else. I mean, it's such a big stage in a lot of ways, and nothing quite prepares you to do it until you do it, and then you realize, wow, you feel like the shoes are slightly too big for you to fill, but at the
But
end
then
of
you
it,
jump in and you say,
jump in.
absolutely, I'll wear them. Let's go.
Oh, totally. And it was so cool. I mean, one of the things that I think I didn't expect from it as much is that, there's a lot of things I knew that would come with it. We had a huge crowd, like 500 people. It was the day after Thanksgiving. So, like,
Yeah.
everybody was free and stuff. And that was just, like, amazing opportunity. But they also had this amazing video that they did. They do videos of all of the Millennium Stage shows, and they have multiple cameras. And so they are
Awesome.
a lot of people actually when I got off stage that came around and they were like, dude, the cinematography or whatever you call the camera work was really great. Like you really need to watch it. And of course, like as an artist, you take your time getting to watch yourself perform because you're very critical of yourself on stage, especially when you have to hear yourself talk. But it was that was actually one of the coolest parts about the whole thing is just having this really super well produced video for your show, for your vision, for your art.
Now, do you have that posted somewhere?
Oh
Can
yeah,
people watch
absolutely.
that?
Yeah,
Is
if
it
you
the Kennedy Center website or
yeah,
yours?
there's the Kennedy Center YouTube. There's also you can also go to my our band's website. It's elenalosfulanos.com. ELENALOSFULANOS.com. And that's, or if you Google Elena Los Fulanos, it'll be the first one to come up. There's
Yeah.
a video part there, and you can go to that, and you can also see our video for
Awesome.
Amor Migrante.
Check out check out the video, and I've got those links on dcmusicrocks.com too,
Yeah,
so you
thanks,
can
you.
check them out after the show. Now, what about your earliest memory with music?
Well, Legend has it. I'm the youngest of four.
We started with a legend?
Yeah, legend. It's because I don't know if to believe my parents on this. You know, I'm the youngest of four, so
Oh,
when they
okay.
talk about things that I did when I was, and we were like like we had just come to the States,
Okay.
from Nicaragua, and we were fleeing war, and so I don't
Okay.
really think they remember like my first anythings. So I kind of feel like they make it up a little bit.
Mom,
you know?
Dad, we want to believe
I was
you,
like-
but we're not sure. Okay.
I was like, Mom, Dad, what was my first word? And they were like, you didn't speak, you just sang. That's what they tell me. So
that sounds like something a parent
so
would say.
so I know
don't
that
know.
my first song was the Blue Danube.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of highbrow, but it's because my brother, my oldest brother is a classic. He's trained in French horn, and I guess he probably was rehearsing and stuff. I don't know how I got the Blue Danube. You guys know
Wow.
which one that dun 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 bum 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 bum.
Oh. And there's words to that?
No, I would just hum
Okay,
it.
you were okay.
Yeah, apparently.
You were singing the horn part.
They were
Alright.
like,
got it.
oh, cool. She's in tune. This one has potential.
You got potential, and now look at you. You're
And
here. You're
they
performing
really-
the Kennedy Center. And that's
I know.
awesome.
Well, I was very rebellious towards my parents and their desire for me to be a musician. I really never took that role, and I didn't really care for music classes. So I kind of did it on my own terms, which I'm not sure I recommend because I'm pretty uninformed when it comes to music theory and a lot of the rules, but it hasn't yet affected my ability to write it. I think it more affects my ability to communicate with other musicians,
and stuff.
yeah.
I could see that.
but it works out.
I'll say, but it's working so far. Now, what's one of my favorite questions to ask is always, what's one piece of advice that you would offer?
To other musicians?
Sure. However you want to answer the question.
I think, I mean, maybe it sounds corny, but I think it's being true to oneself and being authentic to the person that you are and trying to figure that out. It's actually much more difficult than you think when you start the exercise, you know?
Say more on that.
Just in the sense of like music is an externalization of yourself. Art in general is an externalization of what you are, of your interior world, you know? And the more that you explore yourself and you know yourself, and the better you will be to able to access that so as to bring your vision to other people. And there's something about reaching the authentic point of yourself that connects with other people. It's sort of like you access this universal concept and you put it out there, and other people will access that same thing, but through their own experience, you know? And the more authentic that you are, like, it doesn't really matter what form it takes. Like, that's the thing about music, it's so subjective.
Yeah.
You can't really, there's no really like formula to what's great and what's not. But I think what clearly comes through is when you're being authentic to yourself, and then when you're like grounded in a vision of what kind of who you are. It's weird. I mean, it's like kind of amorphous to talk about, but it's like
I see what
it's
you're
the
saying.
same idea
Yeah,
of
I'm
like,
following you.
you know, when people like I've gone into to buy guitars or to try out guitars at guitar stores, and it's like it kind of doesn't matter how much the guitar costs or what it's made out of or all these other specs. What counts is when you sit down and play the guitar, do you feel inspired by it? And there are some guitars where you feel that, and there are some guitars where you're like, not really. I don't really want to play that much anymore. And it's like this intangible thing. So
Got it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. Now, two questions then together. One is, if folks want to find out more about you and the exciting things going on with the Los Fulanos, where do they go for that? And you had mentioned to me before the show that there were some cool things coming up for you. So talk about that.
Oh, yeah. So if you want to check us out more, you can go to elenalosfulanos.com, or if you want to just Google Elena and Los Fulanos. That has all of our info. It has our videos. Also has our music video for Amor Migrante, which you can check out there. We are actually raising money right now through Indiegogo. We have a campaign going on for our next album. So if you all are interested in that, you can check that out as well on our website. And we have a fundraising show for that on February 9th at Hades in Mount Pleasant. And y'all can come to that and check out what we're planning to do. And if you want to go to an actual show, that's It's open to everybody and mostly about fundraising. And this Friday I will be at the Black Cat with the 9 Songwriter Series. That's Friday, January 27th at the Black Cat. So,
So
I can do
all
this. Oh,
kinds
look at
of-
that.
And there is video of this interview, and if you check it out, she's holding up the card here, so you can actually see her talking to you here on video. So check that out.